and welcome to English Study Hour. Today we're talking about the form of simple past. Simple past form means that we have a completed action, a short action which happened only once and finished in the past. Do you remember we talked before about present perfect tense, and we said that we use present perfect tense for the action which has happened multiple times in the past. But now we're talking about the action which happened only once. So the action, the short action which happened only once in the past is past simple action. Another situation when we use past simple is when we talk about many actions that happened in the past and followed one another. For example, I prepared a presentation, wrote 5 emails, and attended a conference yesterday. Simple past is very often used with the time words, the time expressions, the words that show that the action finished, action is completed in the past. These words are yesterday, last week, last month, last year, and all the time combinations with the word ago. For example, 2 years ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 days ago, an hour ago. So when we have these words in a sentence, it's easy to understand that we're going to use simple past. All the verbs can be divided into 3 groups. The first is group to be. The second is group to have. And the last group consists of the other verbs. All the verbs which we have in English. Now let's talk about each group in detail. Group number 1, to be. To be in the past will have 2 different forms, was and were. I was, you were, he was, she was, it was, we were, they were, and you were. So when we talk about past event, for example, I didn't feel well yesterday, we need to use verb to be in the past. So I was sick, or I was at home yesterday, or they were interested in this topic 2 weeks ago. Another group is to have. The verb to have shows possession, so I have something. However, in the past, this form will be changed into had. For example, I had more time yesterday, but today maybe I don't have a lot of time. Another group of the verbs which we're talking about includes all the other verbs. All the verbs in English which we use on the daily basis. They show action. So these are the action verbs. The first 2 groups, the verb to be and the verb to have, show situations. However, now we are talking about the actions. The third group is representing the action verbs. We show with these verbs that we are doing something, we are active, and the actions are happening. When we are talking about simple past tense, this group, the third group of the verbs, can be split into 2 groups again. The first group is regular verbs. Another one is irregular. I'm sure you've heard about that before. Regular verbs mean that we need to place ed at the end of the verb to show the past action. For example, I work, I worked yesterday. I walk, I walked yesterday. I play, I played yesterday. So we simply add ed at the end of the verb to make simple past. However, another group of the verbs, so irregular verbs, we have to memorize. These are the verbs that change their form completely or partially. But we have to memorize all these verbs because there is no rule how to change them. They change forms sometimes completely, and sometimes it's even difficult to recognize the infinitive form when we see the form of the past. Therefore, a regular group of the verbs needs to be learned. Now, let's talk about negative form. Negative form of simple past is constructed with the help of the word did. This word we call an additional word. Plus we add a particle not. So the form is did not. After this form, we use the verb in its original form. For example, I played football yesterday. I didn't play football yesterday. I cooked for my family yesterday. I didn't cook for my family yesterday. I watched a wonderful movie 2 days ago. I didn't watch any movie 2 days ago. If we add didn't, we use a simple form of the verb. Now let's talk about the changes which happen when we add ed to the verb. So we have some spelling rules, and the first one is that if the verb ends with e, we add simply d at the end of this verb. For example, live, lift. Secondly, when verbs ends with a consonant plus y, we need to change y into I plus add ed. For example, study, studied. The third one, if the verb ends with one vowel and one consonant, we need to double this letter. For example, stop, stopped. As we see here, we use double P. We doubled the last consonant of the original form of the verb. Now that we learned the basics about simple past, I would like to one more time stress on the difference between simple past and present perfect tense. Simple past means that the action happened only once. It was a short action in the past. Present perfect tense, on the other hand, shows that the action happened multiple times in the past, 2, 3, 4 times, or even more. Simple past shows that the action happened yesterday, or last week, last month, last year, or 3, 4, 5, 10 days ago, 2 years ago, 2 hours ago. However, present perfect shows that the action has happened this week, this summer, this year, this winter. So the time period is not over yet. In simple past, both the action and the time period are over. In present perfect tense, however, the action is over, but the time period isn't over yet when we use the words this week, this month, this year. That means that I have done something. So the action is over, but the week is going on. This week, I have done something this week. Simple past, I did it last week. Of course, we have many other situations when we use present perfect tense. But when we have specifically the words last year or this year, we need to see the difference. Last year, simple past. This year, present perfect. Ago, simple past. Yet, present perfect. Yesterday, simple past. Today, present perfect. Of course, it applies to the situations when we're talking about the finished actions. If you learned something new, like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.